Hey, everybody, this is Kenny. Welcome back to another edition of the Leading from the Middle podcast. This is the podcast for middle managers who want to develop themselves, develop their teams, and improve their results. Special guest today, the author of Mach 2 with Your Hair on Fire, How to Master Self-Motivation and Stay on Fire for Life. Richard Bliss Brooke joined me today. Richard is also the host of the podcast of the same name, and wait till you hear his backstory of starting out as a chicken chopper and not being a great student in school at all to being one that learns and learns and learns every day. Richard also talks about culture and what are those qualities that great leaders need today. You don't want to miss a second. Let's get at it. Hey there, everybody. This is Kenny. Welcome back to another edition of the Leading from the Middle podcast. And I have to tell you, I've got a great leader here today who is going to inspire you to really take some great action on your career and take some control of yourself, of your vision, self-motivation. We're going to talk about a bunch of things today. So I want to introduce the author of Mach 2 with Your Hair on Fire. I love that. How to Master Self-Motivation and Stay on Fire for Life. Richard Bliss Brooke is with us today. Richard, how you doing there, sir?
Well, I'm doing great, Kenny. I'm honored to be on your show. Thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you for coming on. And I want to jump right in because there's so much I want to get to with you. But I really want to start with your backstory and tell us a little bit about what inspired you to get to this place where you're at right now. And you've got just this amazing story about being a chicken chopper. So I want to hear all about that and what got you to this place where you're at right now.
Well, Kenny, I grew up on a ranch in Central California, a big ranch. And so when you do that, you don't have a lot of neighbors. It's like 67 years ago. And so, transportation, if you live on a big ranch back then, it's not easy. So I just didn't socialize a lot as a kid. I related far more to nature and animals than I did people. And then we ended up selling that ranch and moving kind of to the big city where I started to get integrated with kids in school. And I just didn't fit in. I didn't feel like I fit in with how all the kids were rolling at that time and school and the things they were teaching in school. I was much more interested in learning how to hike and camp and raise animals and shoot and, just be a country kid, and wasn't much interested in English or algebra or any of those subjects.
Wow.
So I didn't do well in school. I think I had a 1.9 GPA in high school, and you're not going to college if you have a 1.9 GPA.
No.
And in the Central Valley of California, where I grew up, it's an ag community. So if you're not going to go to college and get out, you're going to stay in ag. And most kids stay on the dairy, or they stay on the ranch, or they stay on the farm and help their parents. But we'd sold that. So I ended up in ag by going to work at a place called Foster Farms, which is a family-owned chicken processing plant in Central California. And I worked there for 4 years, and I absolutely loved it. And I don't know why, I just sort of fit in with the whole chicken thing, even though, the first time you go to a chicken plant, it stinks to high heaven. But after you've been there a week or two, you don't even notice it. Right? And so I embarked on a career at the chicken plant, which really doesn't have anything to do with what I do now and what I've done since. But that's the chicken chopper story.
I love it. I love it. And so you fit in well there. Do you think it was because of where you were growing up at first? And you said you didn't have, your interest was more in the outdoors. It sounded like, was that the reason why? I mean, because you're an extremely smart guy. So, I mean, anybody who would pick up your book that I have right here would be like, wait a second, he had a 1.9 GPA. Because you also say now you're a lifelong student. So make that connection for us. When did it really click to, okay, I landed this job, I got through high school, I landed this job that I kind of liked, and I enjoyed doing. But then what was the source of your career just now taking off?
Yeah, well, it was just random, not anything I created. The chicken plant, they hired a guy to run the chicken plant that had a master's degree in poultry husbandry. I
What?
never even heard
I
of
didn't know
such a
that was a
thing.
thing.
I'm wondering, like, how does somebody go through school pursuing a master's degree in poultry husbandry? But anyway, he did. His name was Earl Tooker, and one of the things that he did at the chicken plant is he thought, hey, everybody in management needs to be highly educated, so he created an HR policy that said you couldn't go any further in management than I already was without a 4-year college degree. And I mean, at that point, my career was over, and I'd mapped out the whole 30, 40 years and, you know, people that were retiring. And basically what you did when you retired from the chicken plant is you hung out at the local bar, or you know, hunted or fished all day. And those people were my idols. And that's what I was going to do with my life. I was going to manage chicken cutters for 36 more years and then retire to the fishing hole in the bar. And that's the vision I had. And I was pretty happy with it. But with this new HR policy, there's no place I could go. And so that was kind of a what I call a thump of the bowl, right? It was kind of a wake up call, and it just had me look around. And happenstance, a friend of mine, high school buddy who actually worked with me at the chicken plant for a while, got me the job at the chicken plant. He was doing a sales thing, and he was trying to get me to join him in the sales thing, which I was like, no, that's not me. I have no interest in anything like that at all. Just kind of turns my stomach to even think about it. But once the HR policy changed, you know, I just started looking. I had no idea, and I didn't have any mentorship. My dad was not a mentor that way. I didn't have any role models in business or success. I didn't study anything. I'd never even heard of positive mental attitude or personal development or any of that kind of stuff.
Right.
So I just looked at his sales thing. And, you know, this is a group of people, Kenny, that they kind of got me, I don't know, you know, kind of sleight of hand a little bit, because they spent a lot of time asking me about me. Like, you know, what do you want to do with your life, right? Where do you want to live? What do you want to do for fun? What do you want to do for recreation? What kind of home do you want to live in? What kind of car do you want to drive? And I'm like, wow, nobody's ever asked me anything like this, right?
Yes.
And they paid attention to me, and they were interested in me. And I use this joke often, but it actually happened. Like, recognition at the chicken plant sounded like this. The boss would walk by and he would look at me and he would say, "You, Brooke." And that was recognition. Right? And so these guys in the sales world, they understood the people business, they understood emotion, they understood motivation. And I just got attracted to it, even though the sales part I hated.
Yes.
But they just kind of drew me in to the culture. And so I said, well, I'll try it, you know, and so I did. I tried it, and I failed miserably for 2.5 years. I just, you know, actually became a really good salesperson. I sold my car and my home and everything else I had, right? So that I could stay engaged in this opportunity. And then one day I just figured it out. And for me, I'd have never figured it out if I hadn't hit bottom. I had to hit bottom for me to, you know, have that kind of wake up call where, hey, why don't you pay attention to what these guys are teaching you and actually try applying some of it. And I did. Failure was kind of my coach. I had some great mentors and coaches for the first time in my life, but I wasn't paying attention to them. I was resisting them. And when I lost everything and I was living in a studio apartment, driving a borrowed car, I just started listening. And, you know, part of what I've endeavored to do as a leader and a coach in my career is catch people before they wreck their lives. And show them a way where they can prosper and have what they want and live a great life. And So I started paying attention and started applying what they were teaching me and started having success.
Wow. Wow. That's an amazing, amazing story. And I love that you're taking your journey to really help others. And then thank God that it clicked. I love it. It's a great, great story. Let me ask you this, and I want to get a few questions in of advice to leaders, and then I really want to ask you about some specifics in the book, which is amazing, by the way. Um, what do you do today? Because I one of the things that stood out very early as I was doing a little bit of research on you is how you did say that you're a student now all the time. What's a couple of things that Richard does for self-development today?
Well, today, I listen to a lot of podcasts. I read for about an hour every morning.
Mhm.
I put myself in a circle of people as often as I can where everybody in the circle is a higher thinker, more successful,
Wow.
on a better path than I am. So I'm
Wow.
not the smartest person in the room. I'm the dumbest person in the room, and I look for opportunities to put myself in that situation so I can level up. Like I can like get in that vacuum and tap into those people. And I think one of the things that's common when you're successful and you get kind of on top is you tend to want to always be on top.
Mhm.
So you tend to even unconsciously surround yourself with people that are followers. And I
Mhm.
have lots of followers, but I consciously look for opportunities to put myself amongst leaders that are doing much greater things at much higher velocity than I am. And that just causes me to grow.
Mhm.
Along my journey, Kenny, I did something that I would credit with my success. I kind of created my own college education. So from the age of 25 to, I'm going to say, 50. So in that 25-year period, I invested at least $300,000 in my own personal development. You could call it
Wow.
my PhD in leadership.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like going to classes and learning. I invested that $300,000 in coaching experiences where I would put myself in the hands of a coach. And this is different than an educator or a lecturer or a trainer,
Mhm.
but a coach. And that's basically what I do now is coach people and teams. But basically what a coach does is a coach takes someone that has ambition, like they want to accomplish some things, and they have reached the limit of what they can do on their own with their own skills, their own initiative, their own vision, their own distinctions. And a coach shines light on how to get through the darkness that you can't see, how to see what you don't see. It's like a guide. And I spent $300,000 on people that assaulted my belief systems, which, part of the vision of, if you're looking down a road, if I want to go down this road, it's often very dark, right? And our vision is kind of our headlights. We can see so far down the road, but
Mhm.
we can't see a mile down the road or 5 miles down the road or 10 miles down the road. And so we tend to hesitate and procrastinate and undermine. And so we flatten out our curve of progress. And what a coach does is kind of grab us by the hand and shine a light because the coach has been there. The coach knows what's down the road and shines light and guides us to go where we would never go on our own.
Mhm.
And that $300,000 transformed me. Like if you could find a video of me 35, 40 years ago and listen to me talk or walk around, or, I mean, you wouldn't even recognize me. I'm just a totally different being. Now, do I have a lot of what I grew up with? Sure. I still absolutely love nature. And, I'm on my ranch in California. I live in Hawaii, but I have a little ranch in California. And this is kind of in Hawaii. They call it your aina, your dirt, like the seat of your soul. This
Uh-huh.
is this is the seat of my soul. This is my aina. And so I come here a couple times a year and just regenerate.
Uh, so I just want to brief commercial here. Leaders, you just heard a blueprint. For you leaders who think you don't have the time, you heard Richard say an hour in the morning, listens to a podcast. And then you heard him talk about the investment that he made in himself, but also the intentionality that he has in surrounding himself with folks that he wanted to be like and folks that he wanted to get advice from. And then really investing himself a 25-year journey of just investing in himself. Leaders, why can't we do that? Okay, back to our regular schedule programming here. Richard, that was just phenomenal advice. And I love every second of it. And I just wonder why at times in the corporate culture, we stay in those silos, right? So store managers will hang with store managers as opposed to really looking above. Hey, if I want to be that director, why can't I, kind of really saddle up beside that director? I love everything you said, but particularly the investment that you made in yourself. I think that is just so vital and so important.
Well, if you think about investments, Kenny, most people,
Yes.
the paradigm is, okay, I get a good job and I'm making whatever, 75, 100, 150, $200,000 a year. And the paradigm is, well, invest, 10 or 20% of that in the stock market or in real estate and do that for 10 or 20 or 30 years. And maybe you'll have a pile of money or maybe you won't, depending on when you need it. Right.
Yeah.
And, up an 8 or 10% annual return in those kind of investments is considered phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
But what my mentors suggested to me, because they didn't really have any expertise in the stock market or real estate, they suggested consider investing in you. Consider that you are a much greater asset with upside potential than the stock market or real estate, where you have really no idea who's pulling the strings
Mm-hmm.
on making a stock go up or down,
Mm-hmm.
or real estate or trends. Now, if you want to be an expert in those fields, you probably have an edge up. But what they suggested is, invest in you. And if you have a business or any kind of income producing option, invest in that.
Mm.
And so people all the time ask me, so, oh, you're pretty well off, where do you put your money? In my businesses.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll throw $100,000-$200,000 at anything in my business before I'll give it to some public company,
Yes.
right? That's going to give me a 5 or 6 or 7. I mean, you can make so much money in more investing in you, even if you don't have a business. Just invest in you, and you grow and you become a different person, and you can easily earn an extra 10, 15, 20, 30%, even in corporate America, no matter what you're doing.
Exactly.
And there's a million opportunities to invest in us. It's just the ROI of putting your money in you is far greater than giving it to somebody who's basically taking your money and giving you 5 or 6%. And now it's their business and they're the one earning 100% ROI on your money.
Yes. Yeah. Phenomenal advice. Phenomenal advice. One other quick leadership question, and it doesn't have to be quick because I really want to hear your thoughts on this. You talk a lot about really building a great culture in the workplace. Things have changed so much, especially these last couple of years. What's a couple of real practical steps that leaders can take to really build a great culture, and how do they even know that they're doing the right thing there?
Yeah, well, I think I don't think there's one great culture. I think there's a lot of different paradigms of culture that work based on, what the business is, what kind of people it attracts, who the leader of the business is. So I don't like forecast, here's a culture that you should go out and create.
Mm-hmm.
For me, what I looked to create in my companies was first and foremost fun. And, I kind of subscribe to that motto, if it ain't fun, it doesn't get done.
Yeah.
And the whole idea of the drudgery of, I don't want people working for me or with me that, they get up in the morning and their story is, I have to go to work And
Mhm.
the only reason I go to work is so I can pay the bills. And I don't like what they're doing. It's not fun. I don't particularly enjoy the people. I don't really care about the product, the service, or the mission. And they kind of end up being that person that somebody asks, well, how long have you been working for that company? And their response is, ever since they threatened to fire me. Right. And because if people aren't having fun, they're
Yes.
just doing the bare minimum.
Yes.
And so I look for fun. And then I also looked to, and I think it's part of intentionality for me, but I've never built a huge business. Like I've never built a huge public company or a $1 billion business, or, the most employees I've ever had, I think, is 50.
Mhm.
Um, because for me, what's fun in owning a business is to know everybody.
Mhm.
Like I want to be able to walk in the building and know everyone, not just their name. I want to know their story. I want to know their pets. I want to know their kids. I want to know their spouse. I want to know what they do for fun. I want to know why they're working here. I want to know everything about them. And there's downsides to that, right? You get too close to people and, you can get burned by that. But for me, I look for a culture of fun and family, and then good fortune for everybody. And I say these things like I've done them with excellence my whole career, and I haven't. It's the vision I have. It's what I strive for. But I always look to pay people more than they expect to get paid, give them more abundance than they expect,
Wow.
so that they have the good fortune that the business owner has. Because as a business owner, if you don't have staff that are engaged in what you're doing, if they're not on the same page, let's build a big business, let's be profitable, let's grow, they're going to undermine you.
Mhm.
And so you're better off sharing your fortune. So I have always endeavored to be generous so they have the good fortune that I have. So fun, family, fortune, and high performance. Like
Mhm.
I don't want anybody on my team that's not high performance. I want high performance people around me at all times. And
Absolutely.
so I think, how do you create a culture? Well, first of all, you got to know, as the business owner, as the leader, whether you own it or not, if you're the leader, you got to ask yourself, okay, you're running the show. If you're the leader, what's fun for you? What engages you? What inspires you?
Mhm.
So, for example, I don't know if anybody can relate to this, but I haven't, many times in the past, had somebody on my team that was toxic. Like they didn't fit. They weren't a high performer. They didn't share the vision. They didn't share the values. They just didn't fit. And it's not easy to let people go, because especially if you know their whole family situation, oh my gosh, that'll be devastating for them. Or, you got to replace them. It's just not easy to let people go and replace them. It's an HR nightmare to do that. And so I would tend to hang on to people longer than I should have. And yet, when I finally let them go, for the first time in probably a couple of years, I noticed, oh, I actually want to go to work. I want to show up
Wow.
because that toxic person's not there.
Yeah.
So we have to design the vision around authentically, who are we? And if you look at business,
Mhm.
um, everybody's a different character, right? Everybody has different values, different vision, and so they create different cultures. Whether it's Howard Schultz at Starbucks, or Richard Branson, or uh, you know Jack Welch. Everybody has a different personality, and they've created a business that matches that. And I think that's what's important. And then you tend to attract people that share your vision and your values. And I think a good culture is everybody shares the vision and values. You don't have any oddballs.
Yeah. Absolutely. Wow. I loved all that. And I was wondering, as you were talking, if you were inspired. You said you got to know everybody. If you were inspired by the guy that said, you Brooke, you know. I'm not going to be like that guy, you know.
Yeah, well, anybody that's ever worked for me that's watching this might go, well, he was like that a lot, right?
I doubt that.
He used
that
to walk
that's
through the office and never even look at me or talk to me. I'm
uh,
sure I did.
uh,
What
I've
I'm speaking to is my vision, and so my journey is always to lean into and work towards manifesting that vision. It's not about this is what I've done to perfection.
yeah. Oh
It's not
man,
my
I love it.
journey.
I love it. All right, I got to ask you about the book while I have you. Um, and I'm so going to recommend this because it's interactive. It's a workbook as well. Um, you kind of push to answer some questions and really look at yourself a little bit. Um, One of the first things you say is to define success. What do you mean by that?
Well, I think Napoleon Hill defined it, or it could have been W. Clement Stone, defined it as the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. And I remember the first time I read that, having a 1.9 GPA, I thought, I don't really understand what that means, right? That's a little too heavy for me. um, because it was different, because I grew up, you just look at the world and you define success as achieving your goals. And we're taught in sports and school and everything else, right? Is success is you have a goal and you achieve it. And if you achieve the goal, then you're successful. And then there's this, society-based model of success is skinny, famous, and rich. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And so the problem with those definitions of success is if I have a goal, let's say my goal is, I don't know, to double my income or to lose 30 pounds or to do anything, right? You have a goal, specific goal. If you define success as I'm successful when I achieve my goal, then let's say the project to achieve your goal is 6 months or a year or whatever it is. So let's say it's a year, 365 days. And let's say you actually achieve your goal on the 365th day, or maybe it's the 300th day or the 290th day, doesn't matter. Maybe it's the 400th day. But every day up to achieving the goal, if that's your definition, you're a loser.
This is true. Yes.
Right. So you're only successful on day 365. And then if you subscribe to how most people teach goal setting, it's, well, what are you supposed to do after you achieve that goal? Set another goal. So I set another goal. And then from the 366th day, I start being a loser again. Right. And all of society is set up this way. Competitions are set up this way. Contests and rankings, everything, right? You're a loser until you hit the pinnacle or win or whatever, right? And so what I've been studying my whole career is basically a concept of falling in love with the process, whatever the process is, and define success as making progress. Fall in love with the process and make progress. Because what I found is with all the people I've ever coached, I'm all for goal setting. Goal setting is great. Create a success plan, know what you need to do every day, right? But where I steer people after that structure is put up is, okay, let's figure out what do you need to do every day to make progress, whether it's 5 minutes a day or an hour a day or 8 hours a day. What do you need to do to make progress? What do you need to do every day? And then let's focus on that activity. And then let's redefine the activity into actually a state of being by asking the question, okay, who do you need to be in order to naturally do every day what you need to do? Because so many people are doing something every day to achieve their goal, but they're not the person that would normally do that. And so they're out of character. They're doing something that's not them, which is, it's out of kilter. It's out of integrity. It's out of alignment. And whenever we're trying to make massive progress and we're out of alignment, we're dragging an anchor around, right? We're pushing into headwinds that don't need to be there. So I coach people to create alignment in what do you need to do every day and who do you need to be, and then let's cast a vision around all of that and work towards falling in love with being and doing what you need to do every day to make progress. And then we define success as just progress. Because here's what I've found with people's psyche. It doesn't matter what the goal is. As long as you're making progress, how does that feel?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Mm-hmm. So compare it to, well, I've been working on this for 3 months and I'm not making any progress. How's that feel? Right. That doesn't feel good at all. Well, I've been working on this 3 months and I'm going backwards. How's that feel? Well, that feels horrible. Mm-hmm. Well, how does it feel that you're just making progress? Now, there's degrees of progress, yes, but as long as you and I are making progress, next year is going to be better than this year. Right? And so if you put that in the framework of, yeah, I've got a goal, but my definition of success is, let's get in alignment. Let's figure out exactly what we need to do every day, who we need to be, and fall in love with that. Let's figure out how to do it in a way that's aligned with our values and our own passions. Like for me, things have to be fun, right? For me, things have to be authentic and honest. Mm-hmm. Like I'm not gonna do a disingenuous, inauthentic, I'm not gonna fake it. Mm-hmm. I'm not gonna manipulate. Mm-hmm. I don't care what the goal is. I don't care what's at the end of the rainbow. It's just not who I am. So I got to figure out, how can I achieve that goal by being authentic, by being real, by being honest, and having fun. Let's figure out, that's where the strategy comes in. That's where the tapping a mastermind group and asking the question, hey, I know it's always been done this way, just work harder, talk to more people, close more often, whatever the old strategy is. But if that strategy is not fun for you, if it's not authentic for you, you got to find a way that is. Mm-hmm. And then if you find the way that is, and you fall in love with that, and you do it every day, you're going to make progress. And you may not hit your goal in a year. You may hit it sooner. You may hit it later. But I found it doesn't matter so much to people when they hit their goal. What matters to them is that they hold hitting the goal as inevitable. So as long as I have that vision of, I'm getting there, mm-hmm. Doesn't matter when you get there. Mm-hmm. That's how I define success.
I love it. Oh my gosh, you said so much there that just resonates, and it makes so much sense. Particularly, I can remember how many times I felt like a loser. As I said, man, 30 days I'm getting to this, but I'm not there yet. Just that mindset, and then being authentic to it, and knowing yourself. I just love it. I want to get one more question in about the book. Folks, you got to pick up the book. I'll keep saying that, and I'll certainly post it when we post this. I love how you talked about vision somewhere in the beginning, but then in the end, you talk about putting up that vision board and building a vision board. Tie those together for us, Richard.
Yeah, well, I don't know if people out there have ever heard of or watched what's called The Secret, which was a much ballyhooed, I think it was a movie, mm-hmm. 10 or 15 years ago. It was mostly put together by Bob Proctor and some people that follow him. And, he's been a great mentor to me my whole life. And he passed away last year. But in The Secret, I was very disappointed when The Secret came out, because I thought, oh my gosh, finally, all of these great mentors and teachers are going to share with the public what the secret to success actually is. And all of them know what it is. They may teach it different ways, but I was disappointed because The Secret basically was an hour-long movie that kept telling everybody there's a secret, but they didn't tell them.
I remember it now. Yes.
Yeah, I think it's because they wanted them to sign up for a seminar before they'd actually tell them what the secret was.
Yes.
But people might say there's different secrets. I'll just say this is my opinion based on the work that I've done, that if there is a secret to success, It is this. There's a key. It is this. The part of us that is powerful, the part of us that moves mountains, and I would just have the audience reflect on any time in your life when you've been faced with what looked like an insurmountable challenge, like it's like, oh my gosh, how am I ever going to do this? Whether it's raising kids, having a child, succeeding in business, winning at sports, hiking over a mountain, I don't anything, right? Reflect on when you were faced with insurmountable odds and you rose to the occasion and accomplished it anywhere. What I found, Kenny, is everybody, no matter how miserable their life might be now, everybody has a story in their life when they did that. They did something. I ask people to think, oh, my life's, I can't do anything. I don't have leadership. I don't have courage. I said, you got kids? Yeah, I got 3 kids. Are you kidding?
Yes.
You're Superwoman.
Yeah.
Just, are they alive? Are they, not in jail? Even if they are, right? So we all have a time when we have risen to the occasion. So the part of us that I'm speaking about is the part of us that rose to that occasion. And I'll just, without going deep into the neuroscience of it, which I like to stay away from, I just like to keep it really simple. There's the conscious mind. And the conscious mind is the part that we listen to that says things like, oh, you can't do that. Oh, if you try to do that, you're going to fail. Oh, that's going to be really painful. That's going to cost too much. People are going to laugh at you, right? That part of our mind is highly judgmental and fickle. So 1 minute it says, oh yeah, let's do this. And the next minute it's like, oh, that's going to be too scary. And what we've used the conscious mind to do in our lives is basically memorize the rules to life and survive. So we learn our ABCs, we learn our multiplication tables, we learn how to write, we learn how to read, we learn how to pass tests, memorize the answers and pass tests. So we get grades in school all the way through college. That's the format. And then we're kicked out into the world. And what does our conscious mind do out in the world? It figures out how to get a job. How do I answer the questions? How do I make the resume? How do I get a job? And then how do I not get fired at the job?
Yes.
Or maybe how do I get promoted a little bit, right? The conscious mind is worth, I don't know, the average person in America earns about $50,000 a year. You take the top 1%, I don't know, it's maybe $150,000 a year. If you take the top 1/10 of 1%, it might be $500,000 a year. If you take the wealthiest people in the world, their annual income on the way up before they had, all this wealth multiplying on itself, they might have earned 7 figures. That's what the conscious mind is worth. For most people, it's worth like $50,000 to $75,000 a year. That's all it's worth in creating what you want to create in life. And I'm just talking about money and business, but all areas of your life, right? Your conscious mind is worth what fitness you have now. Your conscious mind is worth the quality of your marriage now, because most people only use their conscious mind to get by. They memorize, paint by numbers, like just do what they have to do to survive. There's another part of us. You call it the unconscious mind, the subconscious mind, the spiritual self, the emotional IQ. That part of us that rises up and accomplishes extraordinary things, either because we're inspired to or we have to, right? Fight or flight. And that part of us, here's the secret to success. That part of us cannot tell the difference between a real experience, having actually experienced something, and vividly imagining it. You can't tell the difference.
Wow.
This is neuroscience fact.
Yeah.
It cannot tell the difference. So if I say to myself, because the question you asked was vision board, if I say to myself that I am abundance, that I am confident, that I am winning, that I am enthusiastic, that I have empathy, that I care deeply about other people, that I am curious, that I am consistent, and maybe I visualize my single daily action that came from my goal setting and my plan, and I visualize I'm doing this every day, and I'm actually visualizing it. You might ask earlier, like, well, how do you fall in love with something? You actually visualize it over and over and over again that you love it. And if you think about times in your life, you and I are loving lots of things in our life that we originally thought, I'll never love that. Right? For example, I love sales. I used to hate it.
Yeah.
What happened?
Yeah.
I got a different vision, right? I got different experience. But the part of us that is magnificent can be influenced, can be trained, can be programmed, if you will, to absorb a different truth. So the fact that this part of us cannot tell the difference between a real experience and one vividly imagined is just imagine, take anything you want to do, but apologize for always talking about money. It's just simple and people understand it. But, let's say you make $100,000 a year now and you want to make $200,000 a year. Well, set the goal, figure out the single daily action, progress is most important, all of that, right? But one of the visions that you're going to want to create is that you make whatever that is, $16,000, $17,000 a month. That's who you are, and that's your income, and you create a story around that. And the story includes the visuals. That's where the vision board comes in. Pictures, video clips, music, because to the degree there's clarity, that's the front part of the secret. To the degree there's clarity, and clarity is created by all of the senses. What does it smell like? What does it look like? What does it sound like? What does it feel like kinesthetically? What does it feel like emotionally? When we tell a super clear story about we earn $15,000 a month, we earn $15,000 a month, we're free, financially free, we have mobility, we can do whatever we want to do, move however we want to move, we're at total peace financially because we're on top of the power curve instead of getting crushed by the wave. Don't leave out the crushed by the wave. That's negative vision, which you don't put in there. But so what I'm doing is I'm talking about a vision, right? Which ends up on a vision board, or more likely something on the computer that's live. It's not an old vision board, could be, but here's my point, Kenny. That whole rhetoric, which most people call silly and overly optimistic and woo-woo and PMA and stupid stuff like that. Well, they have no knowledge at all about the neuroscience of how human beings operate, because that whole story that I told well with visuals. The part of me that has the ability to double my income, which is not my conscious mind. The part of me that has the ability to double my income can't tell the difference between me spewing that rhetoric because I read a personal development book and it actually happening. So you use spaced repetition of visualizing that vision over and over and over again, which you can do 10 times a day, 100 times a day, 1 time a day. Every time you do it, to the part of you that has the magnificence to produce that result, it's as though it earns $15,000 a month. So what it creates is a gap between my identity, my vision, and what I'm earning now. So if I start to believe that I'm worth $15,000 a month, that's what I'm earning, that's how my life works, and then I look around at reality and wait a minute, my paycheck doesn't match. That gap creates motivation to close the gap. That's where motivation comes from. So the book is about motivation, but how you create motivation is through a crystal clear vision that's aligned with your values and your gift and your life purpose. And it teaches you how to create that in alignment with your goals and create the motivation, not from the outside, not based on recognition or winning a contest, or all an internal fire that keeps you fueled to do what you need to do, be who you need to be, regardless of what's going on out in the world with the economy, or maybe somebody else in your company is rising faster than you. it doesn't impact you negatively because your force comes from a story that you're teaching your body to believe, because your body doesn't know it's a story. It doesn't have that discernment. The conscious mind does, and this is what derails everybody from doing this work. It's the catch-22 of self-motivation, is you have to be self-motivated to get self-motivated. And what derails people is they may read the book and start the process, but they let their conscious mind judge the process. Oh, that's not going to work. Oh, you're not that successful. Oh, you'll never be like that. Just, don't put all your eggs in one basket, all this kind of rhetoric. And we pay more attention to our conscious mind than we do our spirit and our intuition, and it takes us out of the game.
Wow.
So the book is a guide for all that.
More than that, I mean, you really broke it down more. Now I got to go back and read the whole thing again. Thank you. Oh, Richard, that was just unbelievable. And man, oh man, you just brought so many things to home, so many things to light. And I also think about the voices that we hear even growing up, whether our parents meant to do it or not, they're stuck in there. And
Yep.
you just gave some great ways to get past that. All right, my last question, that was outstanding. My last question is, and I'll post it out there, how can people get in touch with you?
I'm easy to find. I got a website, richardbrooke.com.
Yes.
Brooke is Brooke. Did I put 3 O's in that? Brooke. I'm on Instagram and Facebook as Richard Bliss Brooke. That's really my middle name too. I just didn't make it up for affirmation. You can email me at rb@richardbrooke.com. Easy
Awesome.
to find.
Awesome. Richard, this has been phenomenal. Man, I look forward to possibly talking to you again. I had probably about 4 or 5 more questions, but I'm going to go back and read the book again. So, and then maybe I can come back and ask you a few more. Just outstanding. You also have a podcast. Go on the website. You'll see the link there to your podcast. I can't thank you enough for your time and your wisdom and your knowledge today. It is just spectacular. Thank you again so much, Richard. So appreciate it.
Thank you, Kenny, and congratulations on your podcast. Great courage, great vision.
Thank you.
Good stuff.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, this has been Kenny and Richard. This is the Leading from the Middle podcast. We'll talk to you real soon.